Marcos was appointed by his father to be chairman of the board of the Philippine Communications Satellite Corporation Philcomsat in early 1985. In a prominent example of what Finance Minister Jamie Ongpin later branded crony capitalism, the Marcos administration had sold its majority shares to Marcos cronies such as Roberto S. Benedicto, Manuel H. Nieto, Jose Yao Campos, and Rolando Gapudin. 1982. Despite being very profitable because of its role as the sole agent for the Philippines' link to global satellite network Intelsat, President Marcos acquired a 39.9% share in the company through front companies under Campos and Gapud. This allowed President Marcos to appoint his son as the chairman of the Philcomsat board in early 1985, allowing the young Marcos to draw a monthly salary ranging from $9,700 to $97,000, 6162 $477,725 to $4,777,250 in 2022 despite rarely visiting the office and having no duties there. Philcomsat was one of 5 telecommunications firms sequestered by the Philippine government in 1986. After the Marcos family went into exile in 1986, the Presidential Commission on Good Government found that the 3 Marcos children benefited significantly from what the Supreme Court of the Philippines defined as ill-gotten wealth of the Marcos family. Aside from the tuition, US $10,000. $492,500 in 2022 monthly allowance, and the estates used by Marcos Jr. and Amy Marcos during their respective studies at Wharton and Princeton. Each of the Marcos children was assigned a mansion in the Metro Manila area, as well as in Baguio City, the Philippines' designated summer capital. Properties specifically said to have been given to Marcos Jr. included the Wigwam House compound on Outlook Drive in Baguio City and the Seaside Mansion compound in Parañaque. In addition, by the time their father was ousted from power in 1986, both Marcos Jr. and Amy held key posts in the Marcos administration. Amy was already 30 when she was appointed as the national head of the Kabatong Barangay in the late 1970s. 61 and Marcos Jr. was in his 20s when he took up the vice-gubernatorial post for the province of Ilocos Norte in 1980, and then became governor of that province from 1983 until the Marcos family was ousted from Malacanang in 1986. During the last days of the 1986 People Power Revolution, Bongbong Marcos, in combat fatigues to project his warlike stance, 68 pushed his father Ferdinand Marcos to give the order to his remaining troops to attack and blow up Camp Crame despite the presence of hundreds of thousands of civilians there. The elder Marcos did not follow his son's urgings. Fearful of a scenario in which Marcos' presence in the Philippines would lead to a civil war, the Reagan administration withdrew its support for the Marcos government, and flew Marcos and a party of about 80 individuals, the extended Marcos family and a number of close associates from the Philippines, to Hawaii despite Marcos' objections. 70 Bongbong Marcos and his family were on the flight with his parents. Soon after arriving in Hawaii, Marcos Jr. participated in an attempt to withdraw US $200,849,999,999.96 in 2022 from a secret family bank account with Credit Suisse in Switzerland, an act which eventually led to the Swiss government freezing the Marcoses' bank accounts in late March that year. The Marcoses initially stayed at Hickam Air Force Base at the expense of the U.S. government. A month after arriving in Honolulu, they moved into a pair of residences in Makiki Heights, Honolulu, which were registered to Marcos cronies Antonio Florendo and Bienvenido and Glaciria Tantoco. Ferdinand Marcos eventually died in exile 3 years later, in 1989, 76, with Marcos Jr. being the only family member present at his father's deathbed.